Republican Congressman-elect Keith Self of the 3rd Congressional District in Collin County. Thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate it. You are one of the 20 Republicans who have blocked Kevin McCarthy from becoming Speaker so far. Are you still intending to vote against him when they resume today?
I will be for at least the first vote. We've seen no movement. I have been very clear that I am looking for leadership. There is a trust issue here with the Republican conference. I have looked at the budget diagram in the last 23 years since I retired from the US military. The national debt has gone from 10 trillion to 31 trillion. That is, and there are other issues, other great issues, but that is the existential threat to our republic that I see. And I want someone that is going to take these good rules that we have developed over the last few months and enforce them. Because as we know, 218 members of this House can change anything. So without strong leadership, I believe that we will continue the historical path of just adding to the national debt.
So are you saying Kevin McCarthy is the problem?
No, the problem is with the conference. I have a lack of trust in my Republican colleagues because of history. I look at this chart and the vertical line of the national debt is my issue. The Republicans have been in charge of the House of Representatives 16 of the last 23 years. And yet this line just continues to shoot up. So what I'm looking for in the leader, in the speaker, is leadership. And I have yet to hear that. And that's what I want to hear.
So who in your mind, so if you're saying Kevin McCarthy isn't the problem, who in your mind is the leader? Do you see a path for him at all? Could you see yourself, you said the first vote today, you're not going to support him, but do you see perhaps that you would if there are more concessions?
Well, the person, you've asked several questions there, Jack. The first question is who? We heard the man on the floor of the House yesterday, Jim Jordan. He's got the experience, he's got the charisma, he's got the vision.
But he doesn't want the job.
The problem is Jim Jordan doesn't want the job. So that leaves us in the conundrum that we're in. So until someone steps up and demonstrates that leadership, and that's all I'm asking for, is someone to say that I am going to be the strong leader of this conference. We're going to enforce these rules. I am where I am. Let's be honest. Nancy Pelosi ruled the Democratic caucus with an iron fist. There was no velvet over it. There was an iron fist. And so we need someone that will do that.
But in a sense, though, if that's the case, she was able to do that, as my understanding, and I'm not up in Congress and I don't cover it full time, but my understanding is that she didn't have some of the rules that you and other Republicans have fought for, making it easier to remove the speaker. In fact, didn't she have the rules changed so that it would be more difficult to remove her?
Oh, yeah. They took most of the authority away from the individual members of Congress. And that's why I'm fighting for this so hard, because I'm not going to be in leadership. I'm not going to be a chairman. I'm just going to be a freshman congressman whenever we're sworn in. And so I need these rules. But again, rules are only as good as when they are enforced. If they're not enforced, these good rules mean nothing. And 218 members of the US Congress can change any rule.
So how do you get somebody who you said can rule with an iron fist when you have rules that make it easier to remove that person?
It's a great question. I don't know. What you're seeing in action today is democracy. It's chaotic. It's messy. We're going to go to the floor of the House and see what happens. I don't have an answer to your question. I don't know the way ahead. Every day has been different. Every day has brought new challenges. Every day has brought more negotiations. So I don't know the answer to your question.
How involved have you been in the conversations since you arrived in Washington the last couple of weeks, and even since you were elected back in November?
Not, we had a very good 2 days of rules discussions back in orientation. Since then, I've not been deeply involved in the discussions. In fact, just to share with you a story, when I cast my first vote on Tuesday for Jim Jordan, the House Freedom Caucus was shocked. I've not been talking to them. I wasn't coordinating with them. So several of them came over to introduce themselves to me because they didn't even know who I was. So I've not been involved in the negotiations, but listen, we all know what they are because the rules come out. We get lots of descriptions of them. We get lots of reports on the conversations that are taking place. So while I've not been involved in the room, for the most part, we keep up with the changes.
What is your end game?
I don't know. I will tell you, there's only one red line that I have. That is, we will not elect Hakeem Jeffries as the Speaker of the House. When that becomes apparent, that will be all hands on deck. And I do not believe that this Republican majority, as narrow as it is, will ever elect Hakeem Jeffries as the Democrat Speaker of the House.
Is there anything that Kevin McCarthy can say to the Republicans today that will change your mind and gain your support of him for Speaker?
I've already laid it out for you. I want a leader. I want a leader to step forward and say, I'm going to lead this conference. And I want to hear that. That's what I want to hear.
And so if that's Kevin McCarthy, you can see yourself voting for him?
I don't know. That has yet to be determined. As I say, this is a messy process. We are going to go to the House, to the floor of the House today, and I'm going to see what happens. We're going to go in there and see if there's been any movement overnight, if there's been any discussions of any magnitude or any consequence. I don't know.
So when I was speaking with Congressman Pat Fallon yesterday, he had said his thought was that the mechanism is in place where 5 Republicans want to remove the Speaker, then what else is there that you want? Because if the mechanism is there, then that vote can happen to basically a no confidence vote can happen. So why not give that a shot?
You're talking about the motion to vacate, and I think it is set at 5 today. And I think about that this way. That is a very high bar for any office to consider. Offices here, regardless of whether you're a moderate or conservative, are not going to sit around every day saying that was the straw that broke the camel's back. Today, we're going to go out and have the motion to vacate. That is a very high bar. I'm not sure that that's going to control the day-to-day issues, the day-to-day decisions that leak national debt. They're just not going to be, it's going to be a leakage as opposed to a tsunami. So I just don't give much credence. It's there, we need it. We need to be able to hold a speaker accountable, but that's a very high bar that will take a very, very conscious decision to enact.
So you said this is democracy at work, it's messy. How long, though, can this go on realistically?
I have no idea.
But at some point, doesn't this hurt Republicans?
This is for the soul of our nation. We have got to get this right, Jack. This is important. This may be the most important vote I cast for the next 2 years. Because if we don't have this, we can continue down this rat hole of vertical national debt increase. This is unsustainable. This may be the most important vote. We have got to get this right.
And let me ask you, because I've read that Congressman Scalise of Louisiana's name has been mentioned. He has said he doesn't want it. Is that someone that you could be comfortable with becoming Speaker?
I'm not sure. I would have the same requirements for anyone else that I've laid out for you already. I think Jim Jordan meets them. I don't know.
So let me ask you a question as far as today is concerned. You're going to get out there with all your other colleagues, and someone obviously is going to nominate Kevin McCarthy again, and then someone is going to nominate somebody else. And so do you know who the other person is who may be nominated by an alternative member of Congress today, and Republicans? And I'm wondering, when you hear that person's name, so you'll make a decision right then and there, but how, because we don't really have a lot of debate. We don't hear from these candidates who are nominated. So how are people supposed to hear? How is the American public supposed to hear once these candidates are nominated and then they don't speak? How can the American people see this process really going on instead of just having a backroom discussion?
It's a great question, Jack. I think you need to ask someone who is more informed of the rules. I'm not even sworn in yet. I don't hear it either. You know what I'm looking for, and that's what I will continue to look for, regardless of who is nominated.
And if this takes a week, 2 weeks, that's okay with you?
I don't think it will take that long. I'm not going to speculate on how long it will take. I have no idea. I know we're going to go to the floor of the House today at noontime, and we will have at least one vote. Beyond that, I have no idea.
And do you think this is really going to be a question for Kevin McCarthy to decide, okay, I see that I'm never going to get 218 votes, and so I just need to step aside? Is that what you're waiting for?
I can't speak for Kevin McCarthy. I have no idea if that's in his thinking or not.
Is that something you'd like to see, though, for him to just step aside?
I have laid out my requirements. I want to see somebody with leadership step forward. That's my only goal here. Is I want someone to lead this Republican conference to address the existential threats that our nation faces today.
My last question on this topic, and then I do want to ask you about some other news happening today, and that is, are there any other rules changes, anything else that you would like to see that you haven't seen just yet?
No, I do have problems with the cut go issue. It's if there is an increase in the mandatory spending, there must be an equivalent decrease in mandatory spending. And that's going to take more chutzpah than I think this conference has. That is a real, that's a real vote that will take a lot of courage. And I'm not sure that goes anywhere because mandatory spending are the big social programs. So that is one of the things that I'm watching carefully to see if the cut go will be operative.
And let me ask you about some other news happening today. We hear that President Biden is going to go to the border. We don't know exactly where. What's your thought about that?
Well, my thought about it is it's about time. How long has he been in office? 2 years? I've been to the border twice in my campaign. Once at night to see the cartel operation, once during the daytime to talk to the border agents and the sheriffs and the landowners. President Biden should be down there. Hey, this is a great example about what we're talking about, Jack. Leadership. He has shown no leadership on the border. It is the other existential threat that I think we've got to get control of. And this is a great example to our discussion today. Why have we not seen more leadership out of Joe Biden on the border? I'll let him answer the question.
Isn't it Congress's responsibility to deal with the border and come up with policy and change, laws, et cetera, or priorities regarding the border?
The Congress, let me remind you, the Congress allocates resources. The executive branch executes the laws. We have laws that the executive branch, i.e. President Biden, could be enforcing today, and he does not. The Congress executes nothing. We allocate resources. That is Congress's job. To deal with it, to use your phrase, if you're talking about executing the law of the land, that's the job of the executive branch. So
But
a little lesson in civics there.
doesn't the law need to be updated
We've got lots of laws that could be enforced today that are not even being tried to be approached, to enforce. I was on the border talking to the border agents. They are hamstrung. Agents told me that they normally don't even chase people, because if a man falls down while he's being chased and breaks his nose, the agent is held responsible. If he wrecks his car while he's running from a border agent, in some cases, the border agent would be held responsible. That is not right. President Biden has no desire whatsoever to enforce any of the laws on the books with the border.
And let me ask you about your priorities. Once you're able to be sworn in, which of course means that speaker has to be chosen, what are your priorities this session?
Well, we've got a lot, because there's a lot to deal with. This nation has got more issues than we'll be able to tackle. The debt, I will go back to the debt. We must find ways to take care of the debt. We must reverse the trajectory of the national debt. We've got to secure the southern border. The southern border is not just the families that are coming across, it's the unmarried military-age men that are coming across, it's the sex trafficking that's coming across, effectively slave labor in the United States under the sex trafficking that's being done, and the fentanyl. The fentanyl that's coming across the border kills a plane load of people every day in the United States. Beyond that, we really do have to address China. We need to rebuild our military into a 21st century force that can fight all of the areas of warfare, to include space. So those are the big priorities I have, although there are many more. Then we could get into the moral issues of abortion. The abortion up to and including the day of birth is a stain on our nation. So we've got plenty of issues to address, Jack.
Republican Congressman-elect Keith Self of the 3rd Congressional District in Collin County, thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate your insight today.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.